Hello everyone, and welcome to a little Floodgate+20 Beast Mastery Dark Ranger commentary. So this is not our first run in this dungeon. The first one was like prior to this sort of extra turbo boost week, but this was a very clean run, timed with 3.5 minutes or so, which is actually good enough timer for a 21. So let's see how we ended up doing that. So first pull here, you're just gonna kind of run through. And we jump up here, we dismount immediately, MD, and start hitting this this Shredmaster. I probably lost a little bit early here, as I'm the lost in this group. Could have waited a few extra seconds, but I tend to lost a little bit late for my teammates' liking, so I was kind of like overcompensating for that here. So in this pull, we're gonna send our potion. Normally we don't like to send our potion on the first pull of a dungeon, but given that this one is so big and long-winded, I decided it was worth it, but in dungeons like Streets, for example, where the second pull can often be bigger and more dangerous than the first one, we don't like to do that. For the most part, I focus on the Shredmaster here, but once it dies, which it tends to do quite early, I try to find the next highest HP mob. So you can see I angle my camera here, and I use my highest health enemy tracker, Weegora, to point out this contractor for me, and that will be my target going forward. And of course, but as I see the highlight change on different targets, I'm swapping targets throughout. And of course, in this pack, I'm trying to multi-dot as much as possible. Kind of just like throwing my mouse in there into the fold whenever I barb shot and trying to hit some different things with it. Definitely not doing so quite optimally, because it's a pretty hectic pull and stuff. Yeah, here we are. Another thing that I should also mention is I do send my second Beast of Wrath here, because I know that the pack lasts long enough that it's going to be like, I'm not going to be sending my next Call to Wild perfectly on CD, so I send my Beast of Wrath here. You can see it actually briefly says maybe. And that's the way I've set up my Weegora in my UI pack. Like, it briefly said maybe there. And that's basically when the threshold or the cooldown remaining on Call to Wild is between 20 and 30 seconds. Because, at above 30 seconds, you pretty much always send it. But between 20 and 30, it's a little bit sort of situation dependent. On AoE, you often send it. On single target, you virtually never do. But it also depends if you think that your next Call of the Wild is going to be right off the bat, or if it's going to be delayed for the next pull. So in this case, I decided to send it immediately. And yeah, other than that, there's not really any much control or kicking on this. You can binding and then knock up trap the wind-ups when they happen, but in this group, our other melee have the stops covered. Alright, we do a little bit, so instead of going down here and doing this pull, we actually move over to the next section, but you can see I dismount early, hit MD, and I already start dotting these up, hitting kill commands and black arrows, trying to build up some the bell toll stacks before we go. Luckily, I already have my all the quiver stacks that I need, which is the left purple number on my Call to Wild there. So here on the scaffolding, I always kill the scaffolding before I send all my cooldowns. You can dwarf this thing that they cast on you. So as soon as you can see that on me, I dwarf. Once the scaffolding is about to be dead, I swap to the architect, and now I send my cooldown. So I'll send black arrow, multi-dots and barb shots, and then send my Call to Wild here. My bloodshed is coming up a little bit late because I sent an additional one on the previous pack, which is a bit of a mistake, but not too bad. And here we're just absolutely blasting this architect, because it's the main thing that's dangerous on this pull. Everything is quite chill. But certain kinds of overlaps with Harpoon and the, if that goes through, and the architect cast, that can kill someone. So you kind of just hard bang the architect. And at this point, I'm just trying to equalize a little bit. It's not quite dead, but it's going to die in a reasonable time frame, although the scaffolding is dying a bit soon. Maybe I should have hard swapped to the scaffolding here, because it's definitely getting off some extra cast here, but also you're kind of up against it on the timer in here, so it's a little bit of a balance to strike. You can't play full ethical all the time. So here all the bombshells are going to die pretty much at the same time, and AMS is called. I hop in here, I pop a survival of the fittest. As I can see, we have 5 stacks and I'm getting trucked pretty hard. Up here in this next pull, I immediately send my stuff, but I disengage over here, and I'm assigned to trapping the left one of those contractors, and while the DH cage is the right one. The reason for that is you pull those into the next boss to have a bit of extra funnel and so on. So you get a bit more boss damage that way. Not so much for ourselves, but mainly for the Demon Hunter, who benefits greatly from that stuff. Now in this pack, we're kind of just focusing on whichever's Shredinator is the highest HP. Now whenever we get these dynamite casts on us, our job is really just to be topped. We shouldn't use defensives for them unless we get a double or it overlaps with another mechanic. Because even up to, I think, maybe a 21... it doesn't one-shot. You can see actually only 70% of my HP. So 2 of them definitely kill, and like 1 of them plus any other mechanic, that's definitely also gonna kill us. But I see a lot of people use defensives on stuff that doesn't actually one-shot them, even when there's literally no other damage going on. And that's just kind of like an understandable panic reflex, but it's not really what you want to be doing. But yeah, this pack is pretty chill. We don't like re-CC anything. The contractors are going to come in here in a moment. And that's perfectly fine. We're just going to finish off these Shreddinators and then get the contractors up to the next boss here. As you can see, we break the CC here. And here we are. Kind of just like waiting a little bit, finishing that off before it does its frontal, and then we move up. So what I do here is I set the Kisa as focus, but I target Brunt for the most part. The reason I set Kisa as focus is just to have a really clear display of quick shots and where they're going. It's not so much because there's anything to actually kick on her. And we send our cooldowns right off the bat here. And as the boss runs away, I'm always trying to like angle my way around Brunt. Because as the boss moves over here, I angle my way around Brunt this way, so that as Brunt moves in this direction, and I send black arrows through it, it's going to actually hit Kisa behind, even though they're a little bit spread. So always taking advantage of the black arrow cone on any mobs that are just a little bit spread. Alright, here we are. I don't think I got a lot of mechanics on this boss. This boss is pretty chill for the most part. But yeah, even when they're spread out, like I'm just going to continue hitting Brunt because it's a double melee comp, so I know that they're going to destroy the other boss, and I'd rather have the contractors live for longer, because that's going to let the DH funnel a bit longer. Here I decide not to Beast of the Wrath again, because it's essentially single target, like there's no, like it's not really a pack situation. For the most part, it's out of single target, right? What I'll also see me do is over here on the boss frames on the right-hand side, you'll see me use those to mouse over multi-dot barb shot right there, instead of using the nameplates to do so. So I keep an eye with my UI here. I can see which dots are up on the target. I should probably filter these out. But yeah, barb shot on Kisa, and then I can also barb shot on Brunt here when and as needed. He was setting up for next CDs. I'm going to aim this into the corner here. That makes it easy to set up hits on everything else. Make sure we get out of the way here. And then I'm sort of pre-positioning in case I need to bait it into those two at the edge, but I don't get the opportunity. Perfectly fine. And here we are. Now you can see the HP is sort of starting to become equalized. Also, in 2-target fights like this and the first boss in Priory, you should actually keep up a Beast Cleave manually with multi-shot. But obviously only outside of cooldowns, because cooldowns are activated manually. And still as a lower priority than casting Black Arrow. But basically the goal is you don't want to cast any kill commands on 2 targets that aren't affected by Beast Cleave. That's a good rule of thumb to keep in mind for any multi-target situations, even though it's only 2 targets. Here we're doing a little bit zigzag with these things right here. I pre-position near the thing in case I get the debuff, but the druid gets it, so I get out of his way. And now the things are becoming stacked. I do a clean multi-dot with barb shot on 2 of them, and then I go into my CDs. So pretty elegant setup here. And now actually, with these CDs going on Brunt, I think actually Brunt is going to catch up and overtake. You can see now Brunt is actually low HP. Here I get the debuff, I pop Survival of the Fittest, I find a position where I can get 2 of them. I probably should have done the 2 left ones, like if we want to be really, like I probably should have gone over here and grabbed these 2, but usually just kind of grab the ones that are closest to you. But if I grab those 2 over there, then you could probably have grabbed 3 with a single charge right here. But it's fine, I just about managed to aim that one in. And dodge this next one, don't be in the way. And now we're sort of coming up to the end of this boss. Druid asks me to click over here, and then I've actually done it before, so I'm like, wait, what? Okay, just click, not too hard. And we move on towards the next pull. So now we're doing this pull that's normally the second pull in this dungeon in the vast majority of routes. Once again, MD and like immediately get started kill commanding, black arrowing, try to build up some quiver stacks because I only have 6 quiver stacks going into this and I really like to get that higher up. Once again, I hit the scaffolding to make sure that the architect goes down, and that also gives me an opportunity to maybe build a bit of a quiver. I think I end up at 7 here by the time I pop my cooldowns. Let's have a look. Yeah, so 7 quiver stacks, not perfect, not terrible. But yeah, here we are, focusing on the architect, multi-dotting as aggressively as I can get away with. and just kind of doing a really strong burst rotation here. Once again, binding and knock-up trap is viable for stopping wind-ups, but it's kind of a last case resort because you'd rather do, people that don't need to spend globals on doing it. Now, once again, as soon as the architect goes up, I just like to swap off of it and let my cleave handle the scaffolding. Once again, I use my highest health enemy tracker, Weagorer, that highlights the nameplates to choose my target here, and I swap around a little bit while multi-dotting at the same time. I use an exile whenever I get targeted by this, just in case I also get a dynamite at roughly the same time. Because, that's another thing here. Like, the dynamites, they hurt, but they don't one-shot. But particularly on packs where there's also an architect involved, the overlap between the architect cast on you, the bleed thing, and a dynamite, that can quickly kill you. And so you need to be really, hyper aware of those overlaps and react accordingly. But you can see just a single dynamite like this doesn't kill me at all. Alright, so for this next pull here, because we still have 50 seconds on lust and we don't want to go Big Mama yet, we do a CC on this Demolitionist to stop this patrol from moving around, and that helps set up the pull. Now, this pull can be a little bit tricky. So I like to be hitting the Dark Fuse soldiers on this pack, because the Inspectors obviously jump out and they're super annoying to hit, while the Demolitionists do not do anything at all. They don't move at all. But Dark Fuse soldiers are pretty standard mobs, and so I like using those as my baseline for hitting off of them and cleaving everything else. But always moving to the highest HP Dark Fuse soldier that's on my screen, using my Weagorer to do so. At some point, my Implosive Trap is going to be called for stopping these Demolitionists. And that's coming up pretty shortly. But yeah, cleaving off a soldier here, trying to find a high HP soldier to cleave off of. And once all the soldiers are dead, then you can think about cleaving off of a Demolitionist directly. With Inspectors, you usually don't want to be cleaving off those, because if you're mid-rotation and they jump out and you Black Arrow and then your Black Arrow doesn't hit everything, it's just such a huge DPS loss. But if you do, I'm not going to be, regardless really, you don't want to be too far off of melee. This is probably a little bit too far. I could probably hang around closer to where the Druid is right now. And that's specifically so the Inspectors don't actually jump out of everyone's cleave range. There's no reason in principle you can't be much closer than I'm being. So definitely try to hang around closer to melee in this particular case. But yeah, sorry for the cut there. Got a phone call. But yeah, and also on this, in terms of kicks and whatnot, we cannot solo kick any of these snipers. They're for the most part solo kickable by a melee, as you can see. The cooldown on this trick shots right here, roughly 13 seconds. But what you're looking to do is basically back up. If RPG forces a melee out of kick range, then you can sort of back them up on a sniper here. So you sort of keep your kicks a little bit loose here. Alright, now we're setting up for Big Mama. So we're pulling these ones in. We once again MD, and we start, because I want to get to 8 quiver stacks before we actually pull the boss here. So I'm at 7 right now, and I'm hoping, and also building some prism stacks. I think I actually end up sending a Raz on the very first phase, and that's good, because, the goal is basically to kill these heads on the boss not too long after the shield sort of begins, right? Now, for the first phase, you have Lust and Pot and everything, and you're usually much stronger there. So what I'm going to have for the second phase is probably an 18 stack prism, which is going to compensate for the fact that the second phase is generally the hardest. Because on the second phase, you still need to kind of cleave off the boss, otherwise you don't have all the boss damage you need. Whereas the third phase, you can kind of just YOLO the ads if you did well enough in phase 2. And so yeah. Here we are, it's Pot, Eraz, and we Lust here. And what's very important here is that we're always baiting these guys into the wall. So you always, you put relatively little space between the group and the boss and the wall here, so that when you try to bait these into these sort of blocks right here, whenever possible. And then whenever someone gets Sonic Boom, they run it out and then do what they need to do to avoid it. Just like that. And once again here, you get 1 Call of the Wild per phase, but you also send an extra Beastly Wrath in between here. And you do your best to multi-dot at all times. And positioning-wise, it's very important that you always try to circle around so that you're baiting things into the wall and not out here or in any other direction. Once you can see for sure which Mecha Drone is the highest and the shield is about to start, you swap targets. You find one to finish off. In this case, we did relatively well here. And then you're back on the boss. I'm going to hold this Black Arrow global just as the amp here begins. For each amp, I'll just like to use a survival of the fittest, and then you can use either health pot or exil to like help up with an extra burst of healing if the survival of the fittest is not enough. And there we are. So now 8 stacks of quiver, 18 stacks of prism. That's going to do really well for us here in the second phase. So we wait for everything to spawn. We hit a black arrow, maybe another one, get out a barb shot, get a fresh one, and then we send all of our cooldowns. And once again, we get to the wall here and we do our best to bait everything in this direction. We were a little bit slow to sort of pick a side here, so it wasn't the cleanest, but it ends up working out. In terms of kicks on this, you basically want to be ready to kick anything that gets that starts casting out of melee range. So for example, this one that starts out here, I just use my auto kick macro to kick that one. And then we're back on the boss here. But yeah, the fight is very difficult, but it's mostly difficult by the numbers, right? So, but if you stay close to a wall and you bait the ads very well in there, then they will be in cleave range for much longer. Cooldown usage basically plays itself. This is a little bit of a spicy moment. So I sort of end up like, I don't want to send it into the group here. I probably could have gotten away with it, and then I disengage, but I don't want to disengage out here. So I managed to evade getting any ticks there, but it was a little bit of a spicy moment for sure. And also, you know, multi-dotting here is extremely helpful. Even though it's a pretty hectic fight with dodging and everything, you should try and multi-dot as much as you can, in my opinion. Now here comes the kill block barrier, and as soon as I see that go out, I start hitting the highest HP Mecha Drone at that point. We finish them all off, and there we go, back on the boss. And now the last phase here is going to be an arrest, and this is the last phase that you will actually have to kill the ads in. And the cool thing is that because we have the boss so low at this point, we know that we can kill the boss in the next damage phase. So all we really have to worry about now is killing the ads roughly before the shield. So no need to take any risks here. I still cleave off the boss mostly, but I'm much more ready than I would normally be to swap to the ads early if I need to. Once again, kicking anything that's like not quite in a... Just one starts kicking out here, I kick that. Yeah, this boss is just like brutally difficult by the numbers. It's like there are two, I guess, 3 walls in this dungeon. This is the first one, I would say. So you can see I'm already sort of swapping to the ads here, mostly making sure that all my black arrows are hitting them right. Because I can also see the boss is extremely low at this point. Like it's just going to melt in the next damage phase. That also means we won't be using another cooldown in this particular pack, because the next pack is going to be super important for us. Here where our shield goes out and we're just hitting the highest HP drone. So we're not spending too long here. And we have a survival of the fittest back again. So finish off this. The actual like AoE lasts 12 seconds, while survival of the fittest lasts roughly 8 seconds. Here I try to get by with just using a exil, because I really wanted to have survival of the fittest for the next pack, but then I realized I will actually have a survival of the fittest for the next pack anyway. So. And here, you know, you just kind of finish the boss. The ads don't matter at all. It can take a little while because everyone's holding CDs and you don't have a lot of space. So running these sonic booms in the right way is pretty important. But overall, pretty damn chill. Finish off the boss. I have 18 stack prism, but I also have a raz, and that's because we held CDs for so long on the boss. Maybe I should have sent, but on the other hand, if I had sent, then it would have died so quick, and I definitely wouldn't have CD for the next pack, which is really dangerous, so it can be a little bit rough sometimes. I've definitely like sent CDs at this point many times and gotten burned for it, so now I'm just like never doing that again. But yeah, in a situation like this where you have both a raz and 18 stack prism, you actually have to use a manual prism macro to override and use prism instead, because you really don't want to be sitting on 18 stacks of prism. But and I'll also have pot for the next pull, so the next pull is really big. Once again, MD here, send a few black arrows. This is to build up stacks of the bell tolls. Not really tracked in my UI because it doesn't really matter to track it, but it is something we think about building up. And here we go. I'm assigned to like back up the DK on the sniper here, where we send everything. And what you'll notice is I send my prism manually just before my cooldowns. Because if I just hit my macro, which is like designed to alternate my arras and my prism, then it's going to send the Aras here, which I really don't want. So yeah, we send everything here. The Blood Warper is by far the most dangerous part of this whole pull. So that's the one we absolutely nuke out of existence. I back up the DK kick here, and I send my Survival of the Fittest on this AoE. And with our DPS, we can actually kill this in a single phase. You can see the DH actually dies here. It costs us quite a bit. And that's because he gets a shot. He gets sniped by this sniper while he gets a tick of the AoE. So that just tells you how dangerous this particular pull is. But yeah, with part 18 stack Prism and decent procs here, we just destroyed the crap out of this Blood Warper. It's just gone. And we don't even get a second AoE even on a 20. So that's quite nice. And now we just hit the highest HP target for the rest of the pack here. It's pretty easy from this point on. Yeah, pretty chill. Not much to think about. Building up a prisms, quiver stacks for the next pull. Because the next pull is another wall in this dungeon. Yeah, we'll see about that. But let's just give a head to it. Going down here. We pull some bombs in as well. While you're still flying, you can MD and already start black arrowing. Because like, I'm really keen to get to 8 quiver stacks before we actually pop our CDs. Not sure if I managed in the end. Also mark one of them. Yeah, I do end up getting 8 quiver stacks just before we pop our cooldowns, right? Here, I get a black arrow proc just before I pop my CDs, and I'm kind of annoyed by that. But yeah, here we are. We're hitting the highest HP kelp here. And we have our signed kick, and we're doing that. And we're listening to the calls for when we need to use our implosive trap. Usually used as a very low priority stop on this for all the jettison kelps. Late in the pack, once the AoE CCs are running out a little bit and we are sort of becoming a bit more panicky, I guess, we start sending Survival of the Fittest just to cover for any potential like double ticks of jettison kelp. What we're also doing in this pack is sending Tranquilizing Shot basically on CD on any Algate that goes through, because we're mostly using stops for the jettison and not so much the heals. And that means some heals will go through. So we mouse over Tranquilizing Shot to make sure that we cover all of those. And that's basically the pack for us. And you can see my stop is covered right here, because it's like we have a roar. We have a few things left, but my stop is called here. And as I see 2 jettison kelps, I send in my trap. And there we go. And that's it. Now comes the most annoying boss in Mythic. That's probably not the most annoying, but it's up there. It's a pretty rough boss. So we pull some divers into it. Now, a lot of people overthink this, in my opinion. We will not be able to cleave the divers that much in this fight. And I think trying too hard to is a mistake, because the thing is, if they live a long time, they don't really get much harder the longer they live. You will be pulling in another set later in the fight. But usually, like, you're not in a hurry to kill them, because the DH gets funneled. So mainly, you're supposed to have your kick target on focus. And then really, all you do is you just hit the boss. You sort of pretend they don't exist. There are a few scenarios that you might see where you do pretend they exist. But for the most part, we're just hitting the boss here and focusing on dodging and out offensive. So we hit the boss here, we send our cooldowns. And I'm about to send this boss to absolute Narnia right here. One min-max that does involve the ads to some extent is that if you, like, because Withering Fire arrows, which are the 4-piece quiver stack arrows that are fired from our cooldowns, prefer targets that don't have the black arrow dot. And that means if these divers don't have the black arrow dot, then a Withering Fire will go to them and you lose some boss damage that way. So one min-max you can do to remedy this is just before you enter your cooldowns, basically your last black arrow before you enter your cooldowns should be a mouse over black arrow on these divers to dot them all up and ensure that your Withering Fire arrows during cooldowns will not actually hit them. Now, I don't do that super diligently. I think I do it here. No, because I'm not actually in my cooldowns yet. But I don't know if I actually end up doing it. It's pretty minor, and it's a lot of like mental hassle. I think people, you have to sort of know your priorities in this fight. Mostly this fight is about like living. And here actually my CDs end up coming up as these divers die, so it doesn't even end up being a problem. But yeah, like, you know, people will try to min-max divers and stuff and then die from being too focused on that and failing to dodge or like not rotating their defensives appropriately. Speaking of defensives, you know, I'm asked, basically the healer says if he wants personals, and usually my first person of choice is Exile, right? And then it's Survival of the Fittest. And if I had Bear, I'm not even using my Tenacity pet here. So, I mean, it's a big boy healer, of course, but yeah, it just goes to show that proper defensive usage, you have so many buttons here. Here the tank asks for MD. MD doesn't really do much unless we have a Black Arrow ready, but it's really just like MD multi-shot just to get it in this direction. Once again, we're kicking the yellow one. In this case, he's actually tanking them in such a way that they're in range of my pet for Beast Cleave. So I try to maintain that, while my Beast Cleave target cam tracker Vigor is showing so. Alright, let's see what I do with my Black Arrow here. Yeah, so here once again, like this ends up being, like, yeah, I lose a few Withering Fire Arrows to dotting them up, but it's really like, it's just one set throughout all the Black Arrows in my cooldown, so I'm not really too worried about it. This particular cooldown is with Lust and 12 stacks of, 13 stacks of Prism and my pot as well. So I massively climb on boss damage here. In fact, my pure boss damage by the end of this was 8.6 million pure boss damage. Of course, because I'm not really cleaving the diver so hard, my overall DPS doesn't look so hard on this. But in terms of like actually carrying the crap out of this boss, it's actually really, really insane. And of course, the divers have been living a long time because we haven't been cleaving them too hard. So the DH is happy because he's been funneling. Overall, just focus on boss damage on this. The only min-max you should worry about is maybe mouse over Black Arrowing right before entering your CDs. And even that, not really such a big deal. But yeah, if you have healer communication, then basically only use defensives if he actually calls for it, and use them in the priority of Exile, then Survival of the Fittest, then Bear, and then Turtle. You can also use Health Pot and Healthstone if that's relevant to get out of a bad situation, but that's mostly it. If you don't have healer communication, then you need to send CD every single one unless like there's an AMS or darkness down. But if nothing seems to be down and you don't have healer communication, then you just send a defensive every time in accordance with the sort of general schema laid out. You will have a defensive for pretty much every single one, I think. Pretty difficult to run out. Alright, this pull here, pretty straightforward. The main thing, like there's a debuff from the electricians, but we're a dwarf, so we can just get rid of that. I focus the electrician that's really far away, and once again, MD early on, start hitting things. Do not target inspectors on these pulls. Always target a contractor, a soldier, or an electrician. So in my case, I'm targeting a soldier because these are the mobs that don't like teleport out and whatnot. So I'm hitting the highest HP soldier that I can find. Trying not to stay too far away. I get the debuff and I instantly just dwarf it. I send a preemptive because I saw a cast almost going through and I was worried about it. I get my kick there. Your kick here is also mostly on a backup basis because there's 2 of them and we have like 3 melee kicks. Well, 4 melee kicks, I should say. So like once again, backup basis, if it seems like someone is not really doing the thing, then you're good. So yeah, next pull. Also another 2 casters here. This one really hurts. So once again, we have no dwarf for the debuffs here because we used in the previous. So you might have to use defensives here because you have the jump starter that hurts a lot. And then you have potentially the debuff. And then you have to worry about cast. So this is the last hard part of the dungeon. I really mess up here actually, like, because I'm so sure that one of these 2 will kick the electrician. But it doesn't end up being kicked and actually goes through in the DK. Had it been almost anyone else, they would probably have died. Good thing we have 2 reses. But then I basically announced that I'm going to kick the next purple in this case because I'm a little bit worried. But I'm cleaving off the jump starter. Some comms will want you to send like nuke a caster to make it easier. I don't really think that's necessary for the most part, but it's an option for safety. Okay, kicks on purple kind of fall apart here because then like I got asked for AoE stop here. Yeah, Hunter knock next for these 2 kicks. And then I think that the DH is going to kick purple next. And he does. Yeah, it's just kind of a mess here. Because I don't kick this one. I definitely should have kicked this one. Just terrible kick management from me. Definitely don't copy that part. Now that everything's HP is kind of equalized, I'm swapping to the electrician here. So could probably have stayed on the jump starter. But yeah, nuts. I don't think... I do end up sending the Beast of Wrath because I guess I'm figuring that the... by the time we get the skip done that's coming up and everything, it's going to be back in a reasonable time frame. So there we are. And we finish this up. Doesn't really do anything past that point. And here we are. So yeah, so here's the skip. As soon as I see them pulled, I will, so set up for the skip, I camo, because it's a little bit of healing. We already have it, like we have the Lumithar Trinket Shield from the Druid up, so that's covering a lot of ground. That basically prevents me having to use any defensives here. But what you can also do if you don't have that kind of setup is you can just use like stay in camo, use Survival of the Fittest as you start running, and this disengage through and just get like outrange them really quickly. Another thing you want to, at least I like to do just for safety, like I actually feign my pet right here. So I camo, I feign pet, I move in position, they move along. Here I might use Survival of the Fittest if I wasn't getting the trinket. I disengage through, I'm not in combat, so I'm good. And then I basically dismiss pet to resummon it, because I don't want to wake it up because it might pull. And then I resummon, and then we're basically good to go. And this boss is pretty chill. Like now the hard part is over and you just like, for the healer it's a little bit rough. On the first one here, he said that he didn't really have much built up as a Resto Druid. So like, because he doesn't have HOTS up and whatnot. So I used the Survival of the Fittest here. And I think we also had an MS. I end up doing quite a bit of boss damage on this guy as well. One important thing, one of the most important hunter things to do on this boss is you can handle a Giga Zap. You can completely negate a Giga Zap and basically alternate who it targets. So now it didn't target me. That means I know that the next Giga Zap is going to be on me and the other person who didn't get targeted, which is the Druid. For the Leaping Sparks, you just kind of go reasonably close to one of these and then just kite it into it. Like you kite close to it, disengage over it, kite it into it, very simple. But yeah, here comes the Giga Zap. If you are the furthest target of the two people who get targeted by Giga Zap and you turtle it, and you turtle both of them, you can completely negate the mechanic. So you can see I'm out here, I turtle. It hits me once, cancelled. It hits again, and that also gets turtled, because basically the second one hits me again, because it's like, it has a priority list of who it goes on, and because it failed the first time, it goes for me again. And then because I'm turtle, it completely fails both of them. Really broken here. And if you do it early on, you can do it twice in the fight. And here are cooldowns again. I think I sent them a little bit late on the pod here, because it came off in the middle of my CDs, but yeah, we're just kind of blasting. And that's really the whole fight. Like, there's not really much to it. You just do a bunch of damage. You rotate defensives for other Giga Zaps. I don't think I'm going to get this one, because it prefers people. Well, maybe it does me now because I didn't get it last time. I don't know for sure. No, it's not on me. Okay. But yeah, skipping ahead a little bit because it's pretty easy. In terms of Leaping Sparks, you know, I summon mine here, disengage around this one. And then it just goes here, and I'm not really interfering with anyone else's stuff. At this point, I say to the healer, I don't really have that much, because I don't. I have an Exile and that's it. So he puts Airflow on me. And then I Exile just before. I should probably have Exile just after to get the benefit of the healing as well. But yeah, an Airflow on me and an Exile that helps me survive that one. But of course, our healer is quite good. Lots of healers will struggle there. And here we are. And here I health pot a little bit panic because I'm mid CDs and I'm just like, I really don't want to die. And that I was afraid of this last tick. This one right here, I'm like, oh, I'm at 30% HP. I feel like this tick is going to kill me. So I health pot there just for safety. I think it ended up being a reasonable decision. But yeah, and I'm doing a tremendous amount of boss damage, which is nice because I get some good procs. And yeah, I mean, there's not much to it. I have a Exile and Survival of the Fittest remaining. And I'm standing out here waiting for Leaping Sparks to start. Here they are. And I can, like, I'll just think I'll go for the inner one here. Disengage over. Cut it in. Done. And I'm kind of just in my little cubby here with the druid. I end up moving around, but then I think it says, oh, come back into the airflow. So I just turn around. Okay, well, I guess I'll airflow here. Because now it's going to be the two of us. I just pop Survival of the Fittest here. And in my cooldowns, and then I'm hoping I won't have to use Exile. I'm just kind of focusing on damaging the boss now while he heals. And yeah, that's how you time Floodgate+20 with 3 minutes left to go. Hope this was useful. Let me know what dungeon you would like to see next. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.